Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber for Breakfast. We're now on our 12th episode of 2025. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast. Our next Fiber Connect workshop is coming up on Tuesday, March 25th in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And after Philadelphia, we will have our Fiber Day in the Hill in April, which is always a big event. Then our annual conference, the Fiber Connect 2025 in Nashville, June 1st to 4th, with 6,000 of our closest friends. Then we'll be up in Anchorage in July, in Toronto in September, Scottsdale in October, Kansas City in November, and then we culminate the year with our premier member meeting. This year will be in Palm Springs, December 8th and 9th. That brings us to today's Fiber Breakfast with Shin, the president of Hawaiian Telcom, who's going to be discussing Hawaiian Telcom's state leaders announced $1.7 billion investment to fiber up Hawaii. But before I formally introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from team who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you to everyone who's attending today. We appreciate it. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Now, please keep in mind all participants are in listen-only mode today. However, we do like to hear your questions. So if you have a question, please type it into the question box, which is located in the upper right corner of your screen. And we will be hosting a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's discussion. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available on the FBA's website within 24 to 48 hours. You can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a moment to do so. We appreciate your input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David, and good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber Breakfast, our guest was Aaron Scarsborough, the President of Broadband and Connectivity Initiatives at AT&T, who discussed AT&T's fiber-to-the-home expansion plans. AT&T is committed to passing 50 million homes with fiber by the end of 2029. Fiber has accelerated their business plan by 2 years, reduced their operational expenses, increased their average revenue per user, lowered churn, and provided greater convergence with their mobile offerings. So if you missed last week's session, you can go to the Fiber Broadband Association's website to watch the replay. Today on Fiber Breakfast, our guest is Shin, President of Hawaiian Telcom, who will be discussing Hawaiian Telcom and state leaders announced $1.7 billion investment to fiber up Hawaii. At Hawai'i Telcom, first female president in its 140-year history, Shin stewards the company's landmark investments, topping $1 billion over the past 10 years to expand its future-proof fiber infrastructure across the state. She is passionate about advancing Hawaiian Telcom's mission to connect and empower Hawaii, bridging the digital divide and bringing the best in internet speeds to more homes and businesses. And under her leadership, Hawaiian Telcom has expanded fiber internet service to more than half the state, including the entire island of Lanai and the vast majority of Molokai. Ms. Shin previously served as Chief of Staff, providing strategic counsel to the company's leaders and directing key projects and initiatives. And prior to Hawaiian Telcom, she was the Director of Corporate Communications in 2023, served as Senior Vice President at the Bennett Group. She graduated from McKinley High School before receiving her bachelor's degree from the University of Laverne in California. Ms. Shin is committed to giving back to the community, serving on the boards of Aloha Hawaii United Way, Bell Charitable Foundation, the Blood Bank of Hawaii, and McKinley High School Foundation. So welcome, Sue, and for our audience, please type in your questions as well, and we'll work those in. With that, I'd just like to start off with, Sue, you've had quite an interesting career. I guess you started out as a NBC news journalist, and then you're a strategist, consultant, implementer. You were chief of communications for a utility at the Honolulu Board of Water, and then you're chief of staff at Hawaiian Telecom. Now you're in your current role as president and general manager. Not to mention mother of 2 daughters. Quite a journey. So it appears like kind of a common thread of all this is just being a very strong communicator, strategic thinker, and a sharp focus on community. Is that how you see it, or?
I do see it that way. I get that question a lot because my career is my career path is pretty non-traditional, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the things that have really helped me in my career and continue to help me today is, my ability to communicate, right? Bring people along. Um, and those, as we know, regardless of the industry you're in, regardless of, the role you play, are critically important. So, yeah, I think that's probably the thing that has helped me the most.
Yeah, I'm a father of two daughters, and so and I'm proud that they're strong, independent women, and I'm sure your daughters are super proud and find you to be a fantastic role model. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I should mention that of all the jobs that I've had, by far the most difficult job is being a mother, right? And is being a father, right? There's no playbook, and what works on one absolutely won't work on the other. So it's really, it's humbling, certainly.
Well, I know in my household, um, my kids always go to my wife for they know who's the real boss in our household, and they still talk to their mother every time they get in the car or anytime that they have a moment. So many times a day. Um, so tell us, Hawaii is not like any other state. Can you describe what's similar and then what's different from the other states with respect to serving the needs of your customers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's some fairly obvious differences. One where about 2,500 miles away from the mainland, the continental US. So that makes it incredibly challenging for us in Hawaii. We're very, very remote in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right? Um, so as it relates to the work that we're doing to fiber enable the state, that adds its own set of challenges. The other thing I'd say, of course, is we're the only island state, right? So we have not just are we, an ocean away from the continental United States, but even within the state, we're surrounded by ocean, right? So
Right.
you can't pick up and drive to the next county like you can in the rest of the mainland, right? So that adds operational challenges, logistical challenges, as well as you can imagine cost increases, right? We have to we have no ferry system. And it's interesting, I think I was on an Uber ride in Cincinnati, and the Uber driver said to me, hey, we were talking about how, it's in from Hawaii. And he said, hey, so you all have bridges, right, that connect each of your islands? And I said, no, we don't have bridges. What makes you think we have bridges? And apparently he had flown to Hawaii and was looking at a in-flight magazine, and it showed a map of Hawaii, and it was showing the routes of the airline with a line. And so he thought those were bridges that connected the state. We don't have bridges. And so really it's through barge is really the only way that we can ship um, vehicles, most of our materials, and of course our personnel have to be flown. So those are very, you know, challenging uh, situations for us to have to deal with. But it's not just a challenge you have to deal with as we build this fiber network. It's an everyday thing for us, right? So we have a team scattered across these 6 major islands. So, um, and I think you asked about, what similarities there are. Certainly, the similar things I think that we face here are industry related, right? We're in a highly competitive industry, highly competitive market. Um, the needs of our customers change. Uh, Bandwidth needs continue to increase exponentially. Um, and of course, I think the way that customers demand their service, how quickly they expect their services to be repaired, how quickly they expect us to respond, um, I think those expectations continue to grow every day as well. And those, I think, are similarities regardless of where you live and or where you're located.
So on January 10th, you had a pretty amazing announcement. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we were really thrilled to have so many leaders and partners that attended our announcement. Representative Ed Case and Jill Takuda, Governor Josh Green. We had the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu, which covers the entire island of Oahu, which is Rick Blangiardi. We also had the Maui County Mayor, Richard Bisson, attend with us. And at this event, we made the announcement that you talked about, um, where we are going to be the first fully fiber-enabled state in the country. We also had some broadband and digital equity partners, both on the government side as well as our nonprofit sector partners join us. And I have to say that like the energy at this event was just fantastic. And we got really incredible feedback both at the event, but also from others who heard the news. I had people coming up to me, congratulating us, just talking about how excited they were, how truly transformative they thought the investment was going to be. So I think the people in Hawaii really get it, right? They understand what it means for the people of Hawaii. So, you know, they were genuinely grateful, excited, and I think there's a sense of pride as well that we're going to be working together to be able to bridge the digital divide in Hawaii.
You know, it's funny when, I spent a lot of time in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and, I remember being around the world and, everybody, they were the first gigabit city in the world and everybody knows Chattanooga. And it's like this little tiny place, that everybody knows. But to be the first, fiber state, that's pretty huge and amazing. And the timeline, I mean, we're not talking years, you're talking about by 2026. That's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, you know, it is aggressive, but we feel really confident in that timeline because it's really based on what we've been able to accomplish thus far, right? So when you think about where we are right now, we're at about 60% of the state is fiber enabled today. And I'll just kind of break down sort of where we're at for you, and why we think it's realistic to achieve it. So Lanai, and you mentioned it earlier as well, right? So we're done on Lanai, we're done on Molokai, and parts of Kauai, Maui, and Oahu, as well as Hawaii Island. So in the next 2 years, because our goal is to get this done by the end of next year,
Yep.
we're going to be focusing on fiber enabling really the rest of the state, right? So we're going to finish up Kauai very soon, and we're on track to complete Maui by the end of this year, and then quickly followed by Oahu and Hawaii Island by the end of 2026. So one, we're already, more than halfway there. And we've done a lot of really difficult areas, right? On the Big Island in particular. And I think, of course I'm biased, but we have an incredible team here. They're truly the best in the business, right? And so, I'm confident that they're going to be able to achieve this and execute on this. And really the thing for me that sort of inspires me is our employees are really dedicated to this goal because they live here, right? They raise their families here. They know how much broadband connectivity means to our communities. And so they're really passionate about it. They're excited about what this means, not just for our company, but for the entire state.
No, that's amazing. I can imagine I know my team is super proud, when they sit there and talk to their kids, they're thinking about what everything they're doing is for the next generation and generations to come. So, especially as you mentioned, being on an island, it's so critical to have that communication. And you're talking about, a 3 gig symmetric service to the entire, state, right?
We're offering 3 gig today. We have the Hawaii's fastest internet today. And so, with our XGS-PON technology, we can get up to 10, right? And who knows where it'll go, right? That's the beauty of, I don't have to sell this to you guys, right? That's the beauty of fiber and fiber infrastructure is, once you get it out there, the cost to upgrade electronics, right? Upgrade your equipment, on the ends is a fraction of the cost of what it takes to actually deploy, the fiber infrastructure out there. So it is really future proofing, not just Hawaiian Telcom, but providing this really robust and incredible foundational infrastructure for the state that, right, all the benefits that broadband provides, right? So access to healthcare, access to economic opportunities, access to, distance learning, right? And when you think about the state of Hawaii, the state itself is obviously really, really remote, but like an island like Lanai or Molokai, even the airline, the flights in and out of those islands in particular are incredibly limited and often get canceled or are very, very delayed. So for those people having to leave their island to go to doctor's appointments is a huge deal, right? So people like that having access to really reliable and robust broadband, it really is a game changer, right? It's transformative for communities like that in particular. So we're really proud of what we're going to be able to do for the state of Hawaii.
No, that's amazing. So Fiber Broadband Association, we like to practice what we preach. So after COVID, we got rid of our offices and have basically a virtual organization, and as our employees are spread across the nation. And Kristen, our platform administrator, is a native Hawaiian who lives and works from her home in Oahu. And
Oh, terrific.
yeah, so it's really cool because, we definitely want to test the limits of, hey, can we do this and all act like we're still in the same place? And so, Kristen and a lot of her neighbors work remotely for the mainland companies. And so, for her in Oahu, she's able to skip all the traffic and commute, doesn't have to commute to work. And she's working East Coast hours. So now it really gives her much more time to spend with her children. And so it's kind of a win-win that we get this amazingly talented person. We don't have to, discount her because she's too far away. She can now is basically in the same room with us, via Zoom and other, Teams or whatever, virtual tools. And then, she's able to, and I would think, are you seeing that, is what you're enabling to the state of Hawaii is to be able to enable, all the citizens of Hawaii now to have more access to better healthcare choices, more job opportunities, more education. I mean, what is the impact and how's that?
Yeah, I mean that in summary is it, right? So it's really about, and like I mentioned, and I think this is the case no matter what state or community, right? The urban areas tend to get most of the investment. So the folks in the urban areas have no idea what people in the rural communities go through, right? And so it's really about digital equity, right? It's really about making sure that everyone across the state, right, no matter where they live, whether they live on Oahu or the neighbor islands, where they live in a rural area or in an urban city, they have access to the same high-speed internet, right? The same broadband connectivity, no matter what, right? And again, it's particularly important for those on the neighbor islands, for those in rural communities, because they tend to have fewer options, right? So, I mean, I don't think it is an overstatement to say that it's going to be transformative. And we have already heard from people, and candidly, we hear from people all the time, right? People from those communities that don't yet have our fiber service, basically begging us to hurry up, right? When are you going to get to us? And so we have a long wait list, as you can imagine, of people that are really looking forward to the day when they can sign up for our fiber services.
When I look at I looked at the FCC broadband mapping data from, last summer, and it, had Hawaii had about 6.6 million unserved and underserved locations according to the maps. And your BEAD allocation, your NTI BEAD was only, I say only, 149 million, when the average allocation for a state or territory was 5 times higher than that. So was kind of coming out on the wrong end of the deal on with BEAD. Was that one of the catalysts that really drove you guys to do this public-private partnership to just get the job done?
Not really, Gary. I think we were already starting this investment in fiber. We started it actually back in 2010. What we're doing now is we're really ramping it up, right? We're pouring fuel on that fire. Would we have loved to have gotten a ton more federal funding? Absolutely. But when you look at our investment, so when you look at that $1.7 billion investment you talked about, 90% of it is private capital, is our capital. Only about 10%, a little over 100 million, is federal funding, right? From programs like Connect America Fund, right? The World Digital Opportunity Fund, and now the NTIA Middle Mile, right? Program. So we appreciate the federal support, the government support with funding. But this is really for us about making sure that we can help bridge the digital divide in Hawaii, and making sure that, right, our company is sustainable and can continue to serve this community for the next 140 plus years. So it really wasn't about whether or not we were going to get BEAD money. We were making this commitment, and we were already investing in fiber across the state. The federal money obviously, helps us, and where it helps us really is in the most difficult and high cost areas. And so, it's to me, this partnership is not just about the funding, right? We need our government partners and our government leaders to support this initiative, because we rely on them for things like permitting, right? Yeah. And candidly, just support for approvals that we need, right? With planning commissions and, environmental assessments and so on and so forth. It's not an easy endeavor, right? What we're talking about. Because I'm confident we're going to be able to execute on it, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? And so those are the ways that I think our government partners can really help make sure that this goal, this very lofty goal of becoming the first fully fiber-enabled state in the country, is a reality.
No, I mean, it's like John F. Kennedy. We don't do these things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard. And what an incredible legacy that you will, during your tenure. So congratulations to that. I was in Oahu in March, and last March, for a PCCA conference, and we had a speaker from Maui who came over, and he shared with us the details of the deadly fires that ravaged Lahaina. And, can you talk to the importance of communications through these natural disasters and the importance of resiliency? And, again, when you're on an island, when you're running these kind of horrific disasters, it's, helping people is very difficult because they're very physically isolated on the island.
Yeah. It's incredibly important. I can't stress that enough, right? What we found during the Maui wildfires was one of the first things that we went out there, we mobilized teams from across the state and flew them over, barged over vehicles, like I said earlier, and quickly stood up at the shelters, because of course, as everyone saw, there were so many people that were displaced. And so there were all of these people showing up at these shelters, and the thing they needed the most was connectivity, right? To contact their family, their friends, to let them know they were okay, right? And so it's really like this sort of basic need in today's time, right? So This kind of connectivity is incredibly important, of course, for all the things we talked about earlier, right? But certainly in times of crisis, in times of natural disaster, and Hawaii is, we have our fair share, right? From
Yeah.
volcanic eruptions, right, to hurricanes and floods. We just had some pretty severe weather the early part of this year already, with some pretty severe flooding happen. So it's incredibly important, um, which is why, you know, our team really mobilizes in times of crisis, and why, like I mentioned earlier, our team is passionate about this. There's a word in the Hawaiian language, it's called kuleana, and it means responsibility. And we talk about that a lot at Hawaiian Telcom. And I think it is what motivates our team really in times of crisis like the Maui wildfires, natural disasters, hurricanes, and the like, is they genuinely feel this sense of responsibility because we know how important connectivity is, and we know how much our family, our friends, our neighbors, our community rely on the connectivity that we provide, which is why, right, this initiative is so critical, um, because we know that our legacy copper network cannot support the needs of our community. Candidly, moving forward, but even today, right?
Well,
So
speaking of copper,
yeah.
Hawaiian Telcom and Alta Fiber are among the leaders in the industry on sustainability. Can you speak a little
Mhm.
bit to how retiring copper and the deployment of fiber is accelerating your path to zero carbon footprint?
Yeah, especially in the state of Hawaii, we have um, lots of things that we're incredibly proud of, but having some of the highest electricity rates in the country is not one of those things, but it is a fact of life here in Hawaii. And so you can imagine what that does, not just for, our operations, but, our ability to continue to invest, right, in the state. So, um, as we have these very aggressive sustainability goals at Alta Fiber and Hawaiian Telcom, and deploying fiber is one of the ways we're going to get there, because fiber, as you know, is so much less reliant on power, right? So our
Yeah.
old copper technology, the equipment, um, they're such power hogs, right? They suck so much power. And in a state like Hawaii, where we pay some of the highest rates in the country, it is not an insignificant operating expense. And so, really, by moving off of copper and on to fiber, we achieve that sustainability goal. Also, what it does is it allows us to shrink our footprint, right? So we have all of these central offices
Yeah.
that require cooling,
Right.
that, right, HVAC needs, right? And
Yeah.
so if we can
And it's not
shrink,
like real estate's cheap there either.
real estate's not cheap in Hawaii either, right? So another thing that, um, we hit the record books for, and not in such great ways. So, um, you know, I'm glad you brought it up. It's, deploying fiber is the right thing to do for our business. Of course, it is the only thing that's going to provide us with the kind of bandwidth that our customers are demanding today and are going to need in the future. But it helps us with lowering our operating expenses with power reduction. It helps us to, reduce our footprint in our communities. It's just kind of a win-win-win all the way around. And so, right, those are also reasons why this fiber investment makes a lot of good business sense for us.
Well, Sue, congratulations. This is so exciting. I mean, being the first state to be fully fiberized and the impact. Hopefully, we did a good job of doing a 10-year look back at Chattanooga and be able to document the economic impact. So it'll be interesting to do that with Hawaii and on, because the impact's going to be so incredible. So thank you for your expertise, your leadership in Hawaiian Telecom and in our industry. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today and look forward to getting back together next Wednesday. We'll be with Eric Bathurst, the Chief Technical Officer for the Infrastructure Maryland Department of Information Technology. You're not going to want to miss that. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sue. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary.